Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us to this session. My name is Rime Lake, and I'm a fellow at Superlab and also work for the World Bank on the topics of digital inclusion, and I'm pleased to be moderating this session. Joanne Kinuya, as you can see here on the screen, would have loved to join us here in person. You are very much missed, Joanne. But unfortunately, just a few days ago, we were informed that her visa did not come through. So thank you, Joanne, for joining us virtually. We'll try to make the best out of this hybrid session. And thank you very much, Andreas, for joining me today on stage. And we are going to make the very best of this 1 hour that we have together. After the discussion on stage, we will have time for your questions. There will be a Q&A at the end. And now we jump right into the introduction of our panelists. Joanne, would you like to start maybe by introducing yourself with 3 things that the audience should know about you, followed by you, Andreas, and then by me?
Well, 3 things the audience should know about me is I have a daughter. I love her so much. I also love tech, and I'm very outspoken, and I'm not fearful. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joanne.
Hi, I'm Andreas. I'm part of the Works Council at TikTok in Germany, in Berlin here. I'm working in tech for over 10 years now. And another fun fact, I started my career as a music journalist here at Flux FM, a radio station in Berlin. Maybe someone knows the station. Best radio station in the world. But I wasn't a good music journalist, so I switched into tech, basically.
Thank you so much. Things you should know about me. I am very passionate about the topics around the digital gender divide. Recently also published a report on this with the World Bank. I'm very passionate about personal finances, and another thing maybe is that, and giving you a little highlight into what the program today at the Republica has to offer, my colleagues from Superlab have today 2 future sessions that you should definitely check out when you're interested on topics around visions for a fair and just AI, but also on how the digital fairness could look like. This panel is part of a joint initiative by data workers from Kenya and Germany. It's organized by Superlab from Germany and Siasa Place from Kenya. 2 civil society organizations, and this initiative is also supported by the GIZ Gig Economy Initiative, the Kenyan-German Digital Dialogue, and the Digital Transformation Center Kenya on behalf of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development and the Federal Ministry of Digital and Transport. So in short, this is an effort by labor rights activists, by civil society organizations and government institutions that teamed up to bring about change. And the idea behind it is to support data workers in building international solidarity. And in fall 2024, for the very first time, we hosted the International Data Workers Solidarity Meetup in Nairobi, Kenya, where Kenyan and German data workers met for the very first time. And in preparation of this session, I did a little research. So I spent some time digging into the Republica program to find out how many sessions do have the buzzword of AI in them. And I'd like for you to think about, what do you think? How many sessions today have AI in the title of the program? Any ideas? You can throw numbers at me if you want. 20? I see nods. Okay. So in total, just today, sessions that have AI specifically in the program title are 22. Overall, for the next 3 days, we have more than 60 sessions just on AI and way more around related topics. So it shows us that AI is a big conversation of this year's Republica. And with our panel title, we raise also a critical question. We ask, am I human? And we want to draw attention into the lives of data workers and their contributions behind AI technologies and innovations. And this discussion aims to focus on the lived experience and realities of data workers, because their contributions oftentimes are not reflected in those discussions and are the fuel and the power that actually allow for this technology and innovation to happen. And especially AI is often portrayed as the future of basically everything. So let's jump right into the first question. Joanne, can you please walk us through how a typical day in a life of a data annotator looks like? Imagine you are getting up in the morning, you have your first cup of coffee, you sit down at your computer. Are you at home, in a co-working space, maybe in an office? Can you give us an idea of how this day looks like from start to finish?
Okay, so I'll give you two instances where one, you're working as a BPO, in a BPO setting, and when you're working for a platform. So I'll start with a BPO setting where you're supposed to report in the office as early as 8 a.m. in the morning. And okay, you're supposed to report before 8 because once you sit in your machine at 8 a.m., 8 a.m. is when you're supposed to start working. And you have very timed breaks, like 5 minutes break for like the very first tea break. And again, you're back to your machine. You sit there at your machine and then you have another 30 minutes break. So in total, you're supposed to work for 9 hours and you have at least 35 minutes of break. And even toilet breaks, you get very severe warnings because you're not like the more you stay away from your machine, the more they're timing your performance and stuff like that. So, and when you're working as a platform worker or as a freelancer in the data space, it's not morning. I usually used to wake up at 12 noon. And when I wake up at 12 noon, that means I'm supposed to prepare everything for that day. So if it's tea, if it's lunch, if it's any sort of even water, I put it on the table so that and mind you, it's not a working space. You do not have an office. It's you in your sitting room or in your bed, depending on your nature on where you live. Mostly we live in bed sitters, so that means it's a small house where only a bed can fit. So you're sitting in your bed with your machine, and you cannot wake up because the more time you spend away from your machine, the more your time per task elapses, and that means if, for example, you are working on a task and you're 98% done, if that task disappears, you're not going to get any pay. The person who goes and maybe just amends one thing in that task that you are working on goes on and gets that pay. So like you do not have any time to spare away from your machine. It's constant work, work, work. And I used to work from 2 up until 3 a.m. in the morning. So because usually when you're working with different time zones, during the night is when like there's more tasks that are flowing, so you could not afford to maybe be sleeping. And again, it was not constant. You might not get tasks, but at the same time, you do not want to just sit. So our machines, personally, my machine, even now, has an auto refresh button where you're refreshing and refreshing and refreshing. Sometimes you'd refresh even like the whole night. And other times you're just doing trainings and no projects. You finish this training, you do 2 or 3 training scenarios, and then you do not get a project after that. And then when the machine auto refreshes again, another training, no project. You just get different training scenarios. And we used to think that it was a plan by the platform people where they're just giving you training tasks and they do not want to pay you because I will get a different task and another person will get a different task. So you're just training and submitting, but you're not being paid. So that is a typical day in a data worker's life. Yeah.
And Joanne, one follow-up question. So for some, the term data labeler might be a bit abstract. Could you give
Yeah.
us a concrete example of the data sets or projects that you worked on? You mentioned that sometimes you have to do training in order to get access to do a job. Can you explain this a bit further?
Yeah. So with data labeling or data annotation, what that means is for these algorithms or for the self-driving cars to be driving themselves on the road, there's some background work that needed to be done. For example, we had to teach these algorithms how to recognize different things on the road itself, road markings, and the stop signs, the buildings. Like everything had an instruction. There are those tasks specifically that were asking you to maybe just annotate traffic signs. Then there are those tasks that are telling you to annotate the road markings. But then there are also those tasks that are asking you to do all these things in one task. So it's just training different technological advancements to get like to know to recognize things. An example of such a technological advancement is the self-driving cars, where you're just seeing like the Teslas driving themselves on the road. And another thing we I can tell you like easily is the Roomba vacuum cleaner, where it recognizes different things. There are so many technological advancements that we have been part of, but the problem is when you're working with these platforms, you don't know who the data is for. So unless you see the end product is when yeah, like there's a lot of similarity with the kind of work you are doing. So you get to know like this project I worked on it. Um, so that is about data labeling. I think I've not answered your question, but
No, you answered it
can you come
perfectly.
back?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. No, this was perfect. Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
clarification. You also gave some examples of the challenges doing this kind of work, right? You mentioned not having enough time when you are actually in this working space where you have to sit on the machines or your computers. You also mentioned that it's very intransparent, so you don't really know at what point are you actually going to be paid for the task that you have been doing. Are there other challenges you would like to share with us related to that work, and maybe specifically from the perspective of a woman and a mother also of a child?
Yeah. Let me just start from far. There is nobody who's going to pay your Wi-Fi, whether or there's nobody who's going to pay to get you a machine. So you have to have like money before you start this job. And usually they want university graduates. So that means like they want a whole tax bracket, but they are not willing to pay for the nitty-gritties of what is entailed. So for these tasks, especially the 3D tasks for the self-driving cars, they really needed high-end machines, and nobody is going to provide that for you. And as a woman, usually when it's that time of the month, you know, you have to change your pad every now and then and stuff like that. And now you're conditioned to just sitting in the same space for like so long, and you know what does that does. I don't want to get into detail because of all those things, but as a woman, when it's that time of the month, the constant movement, you're not allowed, even in the BPO setting, usually because the tasks are timed. So you cannot afford to just go out as you please, even if you're in a position like if you even if you're not comfortable, you have nothing to do, you just sit there. Another thing that a challenge that especially women face is the mental health challenge, where usually like the home setting is a woman's like that's a woman's setting, so you have to make sure like you've taken care of your home and stuff like that. And then again, now comes the job where you're supposed to be paid and so many things at times as a single woman like me. I remember when Remotask decided to just close my account. My baby was very young, and I was that was my only source of income. So I started developing anxiety disorders because I had really planned for that money, and I did not have any other money to spend on my baby, and it was around Christmas time and the shoppings and all those things. And at the same time, like there's a lot of pressure. So a lot of pressure and a lot of stress because of the work causes the mental health disorders. And There's also job insecurity where mostly, especially for women, because of when you get pregnant and all those things, you're not considered. In fact, even if you in a working space, for example, the person you met, you are working in the same space. Usually, as a woman, when you become pregnant, you're laid. It's like you're laid off because nobody paid for your antenatal care, and at the same time, um, like when you come back after the few days, the 90 days that you're given of leave, you're not guaranteed that you're told you're supposed to come back and stay on the bench. That means you will not have an active project until when they find a project for you. So it's like when you become pregnant, it's a crime. Yeah. So another thing that um, especially affects women is the sexual exploitation, where you feel, for example, you feel like you're so good at your job and you have all the needed papers and all those things, but for you to get to a space where like you that fits your educational level and you also the level of knowledge of the project, you have to sacrifice certain things and you have to do some things with these people in charge or your superiors in the office, which again does not guarantee you're going to get the position, but at the same time, women offer themselves sexually so that they can get the promotion. So it's usually not because of merit, but because of what you can do for a man who's in position. So I think I can speak about so many issues affecting women, but these are the things that I find that are the most challenging, especially when it comes to women.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for sharing so honestly about the struggles specifically that
Yeah.
women face in this space, which is very
Yeah.
important. And I truly believe that more people should know about this, especially when we talk about all the great advancements and we forget the humans and also
Yeah.
the struggles of the humans behind it. You mentioned also something, Joanne, which was related to the career path and that they oftentimes look for people or young graduates coming out of university. Could you share with us how did you actually get into this career and also what is the typical path for someone working in this kind of jobs?
I professionally trained in international business, but the administrative world was very dormant and boring for me. Fortunately, my sister got in a position, uh, got in a position and got a job at a very famous BPO, and I was very fascinated by the stories every time she used to come home and tell me, "Oh, we are working in an open space where we can see our boss, and like nobody has a private office." Like so, the stories became very interesting, and I was also very interested in becoming a tech person, a woman in tech, to be very honest. So I kept on begging her, I want a job in your office. And back then, they usually did internal hiring. So if they want people from outside, they just go to the people inside and then give them a link where you're supposed to apply. And apply means you're supposed to go, you apply for some sort of training because data annotation and data labeling is not like the average job where you're just given a machine, come and sit here and do this work. There's some specific skills that needed to be instilled in you. So again, for you to get to this job, you had to register in a slum, regardless of where you live, whether you live in a suburb or stuff like that. So I registered. If anybody knows where Kibera is, I registered and went for the training at Kibera KTC. The training was supposed to be for 2 weeks, which I attended, and you pay a total of 1,600 Kenya shillings. I don't know how to translate that in euros. And we were trained as a total of 100 people, and I was fortunate enough during the third week to get a call where I was told I was considered for a project, and we were only taken like 3 people from the 100 people that were there. So that again was a conversation that was there where you told, remember, you guys were trained as 100 people and only 3 of you got the job. So whatever it is that you see there should remain there. You're not supposed to speak about whatever it is that you see. You're not even supposed to share with people that are inside because you don't know who these people know. So again, that's indirect gagging from the from the BPO people. Yeah. So that is how I found myself in the BPO setting, where I started. Um, Initially, I started doing research, which was something very easy. It's something you can just go and Google from the internet and find the answers to the questions that are being asked. But after some time, I transitioned to now the AI jobs, where it's the 2D trainings. It was so simple when you think about it. So it's just drawing boxes around very obvious things. But it was not just boxes, it's very meticulous boxes. And my accuracy started decreasing from 100%, somebody who used to get straight, even like I used to get receive even gifts for like the best employee. Now I'm getting up to 60%, something that is just drawing boxes. You can tell from how meticulous these things were. So constantly, I started like the accuracy started going down and down. So when your accuracy goes down, you go to a PIP stage 1, and then a PIP stage 2, and then a PIP stage 3. PIP stage 4 meant you are not improving, and that means you're supposed to be laid off. I did not want that to go into my papers, so I started like looking for some exit, which I applied for another company, and I got in. And I can tell you for free, I reported to work at night during the night shift, and during the day I transitioned to my other office. So you see, even like there's no balance of, you have some 6 months to give people notice so that they can, like there's no, how do I put it? There's no, it's not like the traditional jobs where there's all those rules. So I just transitioned and went to the other company. So the other company I thought was even better because it was being ranked as the best BPO back then. Where now we started doing 3D tasks, which were very difficult, because from the 2D you could see this is a car. But from the 3D tasks, now you have to make out of how a car looks like, how a building looks like. And there are these projects that we were doing that you have to color things, you have to color code things according to the instructions that you're given. So if it's a building, it's given a color code for color brown. And 1 pixel, that means 1 dot. If it's not colored or if it is miscolored, that means that task is going to stay with you until you find where that 1 pixel is that has been misclassified. And like, it was not easy, but now that is how I transitioned to 3D. So again, because the work that I was doing at the second company, it was so hard, and you were being paid less than 24,000 Kenya shillings, because if you get above 24,000 Kenya shillings, that meant you are tax liable. So we used to balance, you make sure you earn anything less than 24,000 shillings. So when I was working there is when I found out about um, the platform work. We used, because we were so used to being scammed when we were working in this platform. So we used one person. We worked with him consistently throughout the week so that we can like see if he's going to be get paid, which he did. So after the 1 week, he got paid, and all of us now enrolled and started doing the tasks. After that, it became a norm, because back then the platform was paying very well. You'd get $30, $50 for a single task, and it's something like you do for 4 or 5 hours. And yeah, so as time went by, the tasks were becoming more and more complex, and the pay and the environment became very toxic, because I remember back then we used to communicate with these platform people and tell them, do this, add photos, do this to the platform, do this, and then like the communication was flowing. But along the way, because of the saturation of people, and so many people started finding out about these jobs, and like the platforms were becoming better and better, and now they used to use this data, things are changed from bad to worse. And that is how I found myself in this platform and data labeling works. So
Thank,
yeah.
thank you so much, Joanne, for giving us this very for sharing with us how it came about, and also how oftentimes, especially in this field, it's dominated by intransparency, by a lot of pressure, and also by this kind of like isolated approach for data workers having very difficult time to organize and also understand who does the same kind of job. Andreas, you work at TikTok's Works Council. How did you get into this work?
So as I said, I was a music journalist, so I'm coming from a music background. I then worked for Spotify for a couple of years, and then TikTok reached out to me because they were building a music team at TikTok in Germany. This was 2019, and I joined, and I'm still also working in the music team, basically working with artists and music labels. But then also, and honestly, although I'm in the Works Council, I still like my job, and I'm happy that I can do the job. But also, when I heard from other colleagues that they want to build a Works Council, I was immediately, I wanted to join immediately, because for me it was not about not coming out of frustration, but more out of I'm in a good position, but I see that others, especially in our content moderation team, which is a huge department at TikTok in general and also in Berlin, and their working conditions weren't that good as my working conditions. So I thought, okay, I want to get active and want to support colleagues and help them, especially as in content moderation, but also in tech in general, we have a lot of migrant workers from other countries all around the world. And usually they have no idea about their rights in Germany. So we have really good workers' rights in Germany, but often they don't know it. For example, they also were thinking, okay, the company can fire me because of bad performance, but that's not that easy. That's not possible. And also, with regards to, usually the company then offers mutual termination agreements, and they were felt pressured into signing it until we then explained that no, you don't have to sign it. It's both sides have to sign it. So stuff like this brought me then into the Works Council.
Thank you so much for sharing. For those of you who might not be familiar with the English terms, Works Council means Betriebsrat, and especially in Germany we have this long-lasting legacy also of the worker rights movements. For those maybe who are not aware of what the day-to-day looks of a content moderator, can you describe maybe in 2 sentences what is the kind of work a content moderator does at TikTok or in general? Basically content moderators, they are kind of responsible for the security or safety of our platforms. So basically every piece of content that is posted online needs to be moderated. Of course, videos, short videos, of course, live streams, but also comments and everything that happens around. Every piece of content needs to be moderated, and that's basically their job. But it's also it's basically 24/7. You have to work in shifts, also on weekends, of course, because it never stops. And there is then one difference. So we have a TikTok in-house moderation, but it's also outsourced because of course the content gets more and more, and you need more people to moderate. And so, but also the in-house moderators, their working conditions are far better than outsourced. I think Joanne, it's kind of similar to what Joanne already explained, especially for outsourced, like the BPOs, moderators. So there are also a lot of similarities in the challenges between content moderators and data annotators, labelers, or data workers in general.
For example, Joanne talked about accuracy rate, and that's obviously also measured for content moderators. How accurate are they moderating the content? And obviously you want to have a high accuracy rate, but that also puts a lot of pressure on moderators, and also you need to moderate a certain amount of content a day. And this number increased over the years. And so this also puts a lot of pressure because you have to reach your target and also be accurate. And yeah, and these are also the knobs where the company is always like trying to push the boundaries even further.
You also mentioned a bit the formalization of the Works Council at TikTok, and especially at a time where there was a big pushback from social media companies and tech companies in general on workers' rights movements. Why did you start this process? And also, what are the topics that keep you right now busy?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so the initiative came out of the content moderation team at TikTok. There were like 2-3 people who like said, we need to get active and to kind of try to push back a little bit and, you know, like explain that we also have rights as workers. So, and then they tried to gather more and more people also from other departments, and that's how I came in. So, and yeah, again, it was mainly about the pressure when it comes to accuracy rate and the so-called utilization rate. But also, Joanne also touched on this as well, the mental health issues, they were like increasing as well. So these were kind of the initial thoughts to have a works council to push back there. And then we started it took 1.5 years to finally be able to vote or elect a works council. So it was in the middle of COVID, and then it was also really tricky because to have an elected works council you need an election committee. And so also this election committee needs to be elected and voted on. But this needs to be in person, and we could only do it online because we weren't allowed to go to the office, and also with all the COVID restrictions. So we did an online session, and then TikTok went to court and, you know, appealed it, and they won the case because the judge said, no, it is COVID, but unfortunately it's in the law, you have to do it in person. So what we did then is, that was fine. Okay, we learned a lot, but then what we did was we reached out to Verdi, the union, and they actually supported us a lot also with when it comes to the legal issues. They helped us organize everything. So, and then the process still took a while, but then we were able to elect the Works Council in 2022.
Thank you so much. Speaking of formalization of associations, Joanne, you recently founded and are the director of the Kenyan's first data label association. Congratulations to this very important and big milestone. Yeah. I hope you can hear the claps. And could you maybe share with us what the motivation behind it was, and also what are maybe the 2 big objectives that you have with the association?
Thank you so much for the congratulations. Yeah, so the reason as to why we founded the Data Labelers Association is like I start from like when I started, like when my money just disappeared, and it's something I had honestly worked for. And that account was mine from from the year 2017. I don't know what decision or what led to them deactivating my account. So when that happened, I reached out to like 10 of the association members, the core members, and we found out like there were patterns. But when we started having conversation now with stakeholders is when like on a daily basis we found like we needed to have something for the workers, because we speak about the kinds of projects we are working on. For example, there's a company that asks us to give them photos of our children doing cartwheels. Another is going to ask you for your portrait wearing a hat, or like having a map. Like, and then at the same time, when you go to Telegram, you're finding your face doing different stuff, and like your face, and then now different things. So like all this, having conversations with different stakeholders every day gave us more and more motivation to come up with something for the workers. So, but our biggest push came when we met the SN workers, the SN German workers, the Workers' Council, when we were having a conversation as to how they even managed to have eyewear for the workers. They even told us like they have 5 minutes break for a cigarette break, and we are like, okay, so if these guys can do it, even us we can do it. But the problem here in Kenya is we had no laws to build on, and we had nothing. So like we are literally like very, is it like fighting for a space? Because since I'm so happy now people are speaking about data workers and data labeling, but when we entered this space, the only conversation was about content moderation and Uber drivers. So, and when we try to say like data labeling is a different sort of job from like others, like we had to seriously prove ourselves and have very conversation, especially explaining the kind of work we are doing. So every day on a daily basis, we got to learn like that one, like working with no contract was a violation, and we never knew that was a violation of our right. Like working for more than during the weekends, that's a violation because you're not being paid for working for that weekend. Working past 8 hours, you're supposed to get some overtime, and like it was a learning process for us because we were fresh workers from like having work, and now we are getting ourselves into activism. And as we were learning, the more we got the push to do something. So we found that a union would take so much time before anything happens. Like in Kenya, we were advised like it's going to take around 15 years before anything concrete happens. So we felt like an association is going to be best for us and for the workers because we are going to be all of us. And I also need to mention that the 10 core members, the president and the vice president are the only people who are not working. The rest of the members are still working. So we still have information on the ground, and we still have like conversation as to what is happening, right? So among the challenges that we are finding that among the objectives of the association is litigation. So that is very personal, even for me, because when a company decides to wake up and leave and nobody does anything about it, that's going to be the norm, and you don't want to normalize that. So that is what among one of the very major objectives of the association. Another objective that we recently adopted is we found out like there's a knowledge gap where we're having a conversation and people don't even understand what you're speaking about. So we found out like having civic education for like the workers and the people themselves, because we have a miscommunication where the workers don't know like their rights, and the key stakeholders, the people in politics and the legislators don't know what this work is all about. So I think those are the two main, and also we are also like mental health is on another big objective where we want to have mental health people like the therapist and all those things. We want to have them on board because at the moment, the workers that are working in the BPO setting, they say the BPO settings are saying that the BPOs are saying that they have mental health coaches, but their contract states that you're not supposed to speak to these mental health coaches about the kinds of project you're working on. So again, that's another challenge where also you don't know if when you go and speak about your challenge to this, okay, because something, whatever it is you're going to say is going to be, you're going to be stigmatized about it. So we want to have mental health sessions away from the BPO setting where you can be comfortable and speak about whatever it is it's challenging you mentally, and you can try and have help for you, whether it's through group session or even individual group session. So those are the three. We have more, but those are the three main objectives of the association and the reason why we started the association.
Thank you so much, Joanne. What I'm hearing also are those similarities, right? Because especially for data
Yeah.
workers, data annotators, they are oftentimes, or in most cases, freelancers. So you don't really know who your co-workers might be. At TikTok, for instance, the content
Yeah.
moderators, those that are employed by the company itself, they do know their co-workers, but for the freelance ones, it's the same challenge. And you both also raised the questions around, do workers know their rights, and do they also know how to actually take action on those? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. And the problem here is also oftentimes that this is done by default, and also because it has a lot of benefits and advantages for larger companies that actually take advantage on co-workers not knowing their rights, maybe not being able to organize through that. And you both also raised something related to mental health. So especially for content moderation, when used for social media networks, it requires to look at massive amounts of content, including extreme and graphic content. We often hear in this debate the argument that this work could sooner be taken over by machines that might be able to use automated systems to look through that content. But in order to have those automated systems, we need data workers like Joanne to train those systems. I'm asking both of you, and maybe starting with you, Andreas, so the humans behind the machines, is it even desirable and realistic for the machines to take over this kind of work, or do we still need humans to do it? What is your opinion on that?
I think it's already happening that machines or AI is taking over this kind of task. It may not be AI yet, but there are already algorithms in place that are trained. Because content moderators, they have a set of internal guidelines and rules and regulations, but also local law, and then this all applies. And this you can also put into an algorithm, and then the algorithm can already kind of start moderating. This is already happening. When it gets to like the point of self-learning machines, I think there at the moment content moderators are already kind of training the AI. For example, when it comes to edge cases, so usually a moderator moderates a video, and then we have quality assurance, and they like pick videos, and then it can happen that they would moderate a video totally different. But this is then collected and put into a machine, and then the machine learns how did they decide and what is the correct way. So this is already happening. And on the one hand, it has some advantages, as you said, because of mental health, especially when really violent graphic content is moderated by an algorithm. I think that's fine as long as algorithm or AI is used as a tool. It's fine, but it still needs human oversight. And then also, who's watching the watchmen? So it's also human oversight is obviously done inside the company, but who's like observing what they are doing there? So yeah, that's problematic.
Joanne, what is your opinion on that, especially as someone who's a data annotator and who might end up actually teaching and training those systems? What do you think? Is the human touch still needed?
Yeah, I can tell you for free if it's like they've been trying since we started. They tried to come up with a system where it can self-automate the 3D tasks, but every time there was so much misclassification or mislabeling of things. So the tasks used to come back again to us so that you can delete everything and redo them again. When it comes to financial annotation, the algorithm does not detect a comma or a full stop. So you might be speaking about 800.00 or 800 comma. So it picks like different numbers. So you can tell, like you can see, like even if when you input wrong, when the machine inputs wrong data, how the effects of everything. So I feel the human interaction of the human interaction perspective is very important, and my feeling is I do not think AI will do or will achieve all these things on its own. What it's going to do is, like, there's going to be a level where now AI can do, and then now humans come and do. Like, for example, what Andreas has said about the quality, you have to just make sure the nitty gritty is just to perfect the task. But there's no way AI is going to be 100% independent and do things on its own. The a human interaction perspective is always going to be there.
Thank you. One question also to you, Joanne. What would you prefer, how to framing when we talk about AI? In your opinion, what should be different? Should we frame this overall discussion differently or more nuanced?
I think just more nuanced because I'm liking the direction of the conversations that we are having. I'm liking that people are getting to know what AI is. It's not just doing itself because there are people, there are conversation we're having, and then you can literally argue with the person and they're saying AI is doing it. And I'm like, no, AI is not doing it. Now I'm happy. Now people are getting, like, there are people behind these systems. And I'm liking the direction of the conversation. So it should be more nuanced.
Thank you. What about you, Andreas?
Yeah, I think AI is already here and we have to face it that people will be laid off and losing their jobs because of AI. And yeah, we should focus more on this. How can we support those who will lose their jobs because of AI? Because yeah, it won't go away. And I think there are already, at least in Europe, some kind of good regulations and laws. But I'm missing the point that looking at who are the people who will lose their jobs and how can we support them.
I think that's a very important topic also to speak about what is the future, what will come related to the different employment situations, the jobs that might be lost, that might be created also. If you are successful with your initiative, with the Works Council, how would the field, in your opinion, improve? What would you wish for?
I wish for not a lot. It's basically what I wish for is that again what we had, that people know their rights and that companies can't do everything with their employees. So just educating people about their rights and also what will eventually happen with their jobs. Not only in content moderation, basically all the jobs in tech companies are kind of at risk, or people might lose their jobs. So yeah, it's mainly about education.
Thank you. That's a very important point. Joanne, moving to the last question. What gives you hope when you see all of those data workers coming together and are trying to break those power dynamics and also move the needle more towards better working conditions? In this context, what gives you hope?
The fact that people are talking about policies and legislation, and the fact that there are those organizations that are naming and shaming these companies. And I think something to add to such a conference is we need the BPOs or the platform people to be involved in such conversations so that you cannot only hear one side of the story, we also want to hear their side of the story and what their justifications are and how they're treating people. Do they know the situation on the ground, right? Yeah, and something like to also hope for. I'm hoping for the professionalization of this career because I have worked on data labeling and annotation since 2017, and the skills that I've gotten there are not transferable to any other field. So also professionalization of these skills that you are getting is also something I'm very hopeful for.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Maybe to the two of you, before we jump into the Q&A, and we would love to hear all of your questions. Joanne, are there last insights, call to action? Is there something you would like to share with the audience before we move to the questions?
Yeah, I think from me, let's just hold each other accountable. If I'm supposed to give you a quality job, I'm supposed to spend 20 hours, I'm supposed to do all these things. My mental health is supposed to be checked. My hospital bills are supposed to be checked because this platform have a timer where the more time you're spending on these platforms, the timer counts. So for most people, it's more than 40 hours. At times, you're getting people are spending more than 80 hours. And when you tell them an accident happened or this and this happened, they say they cannot account for where you are, what job you're doing. While their systems themselves, they're showing them most of the time you've spent sitting in front of a machine. Most of the people in this industry are now suffering from eyesight issues because of amount of time you're supposed to spend on the machine and the zooming in and the zooming out and the types of machine you're supposed to have Like they are very high-end machine. From my area, it's like from around 50,000 to 100,000. And the kind of money you're being paid 0.0 something dollars. It's not even enough to facilitate for anything. But that's the job we have at the moment. So let's just hold each other accountable. Everybody to play their part. If it's the platform, you people pay people how you're supposed to be paid. Treat them with decency, and make sure like their futures are also secured by paying for social benefits and all those things. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this
And
very
also,
powerful call to action. Go ahead, Joanne.
yeah, I wanted to add about policies and legislation. So let's let the governments that are involved to not drag the issues about policies and legislation. These things are really needed at the moment, because now is when we have data workers and data annotators, and we are supposed to. And I'm thinking in the next 5 years you're going to be having another conversation. So at the moment when things are very needed is when the legislation and the policies, we need them right now. Don't drag the processes. Yes.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Andreas, any last insights, call to action?
Yeah, it's never too late to start a works council. So, and even if you think at your workplace, oh no, I'm fine, everything is fine, it's good, there's still always room for improvement. So also next year are the next Works Council elections in 2026. Take this opportunity and also join unions, because especially when it comes to workers' rights, unions can push back. Also, you heard what's going on at the moment. They want to take away like days, public holidays and stuff like this. They want us to work longer. Unions are here for us. They can push back. So yeah, join a union if you haven't done it.
Thank you so much, Andreas. Now the questions. Yeah, you're right. Now we're moving to questions from the audience. You can see in the middle, you'll find also a microphone, so please don't be shy. You can just get up. Just keep in mind, you might hear yourself double, so take out your earplugs. Any questions from the audience? Okay, the first ones are moving. Perfect.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Antonia. Hello. Thank you for sharing, Joanna. I used to work for one of the 3 top providers in BPO, and I can totally feel you. I wasn't in content moderation, but I know how the pressure works on you and the NDAs, and they're pushing you to keep this information within you, and even if you have fears and doubts, you're not sharing it because you're too scared to share anything. I wanted to know what we can do as users personally to support you in your work, because I know BPOs all over the world. They're in Germany where we have more workers' rights. They're all over Africa. They're in the Philippines, in China, and so on. So it's very hard because they are spread all over. So what can we do as users to support you?
Thank you so much for that question. Joanne, do you want to answer to that question?
Yeah. So I think just creating awareness is enough, especially for the users in the user side. When you see something, any technological advancement, ChatGPT, like anything that is technology, that has the word technology, just know that there's someone behind it. So let's not fall behind the scams that these big tech companies are saying these things are doing them on their own. So let's just be like create self-awareness about like the workers that are invisible in these spaces. I think that is one step. And then when we have a conversation about Meta doing this to their workers, now let's name and shame and not be afraid to use hashtags and all those things, so that they can be accountable. And one thing we have found out is when they come to this section, they do harm, they move to another section. So I think when we create awareness all over, not just in specific regions, it's going to it is going to be as effective as possible. I don't know if that is the correct response, but I'm feeling like once everybody is aware that there are people behind this technological advancements, then the big tech companies and the BPOs are going to be accountable in case their workers are being exploited and are facing injustices.
Thank you so much, Joanne. And with your comment, you are also tying it back to the name of this and the title of this session, right? Am I human? To think of the humans, the data workers behind all of those systems and achievements that are oftentimes not seen, made invisible, and also voiceless. And for all of us as a call to action to step up and actually make their work and contributions more visible and support them however we can.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. I used to be very hopeful. I thought maybe when the Teslas were being driven, somebody somewhere would mention not even my name, but a group of workers from Kenya did something behind this. But as time went by, we are slowly and slowly losing our voices, and the big tech companies are the people who are running the world, using people's blood and sweat. But we are here, and we will make sure we are being heard.
Perfect. And for anyone also, is there maybe a second question? If so, please, we have 3 more minutes, so don't be shy. If any one of you wants then also to get in touch with Joanne, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to put you in contact with Joanne to also share the website of the Data Workers Association. I'm seeing someone standing next to the microphone. Is there a question? Yeah, please go ahead. The last question.
You mentioned the exploitative practices being used to train these models for social media platforms. Now, as a user, that is one of the multiple things that one can notice to be critical of these like big tech companies. The other are environmental issues or democracy, wariness and problems with how it affects democracy. If one as a user thinks about boycotting these systems and not using them, I presume that would also mean that those jobs then don't exist. From your observation, would that have a net positive or negative effect on the workers that you're fighting for their rights to, if users here boycott these systems?
Andreas, Joanne?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I would say if it's like a massive amount of users that are boycotting a platform, and it is clear they are boycotting it because they are like the policies aren't working, and that's why they are leaving the platform. That's definitely something these platforms would recognize, because they will lose money, because people there won't be any advertisement, or the advertisement, like their income is gone. So this would have an effect. But you also need to organize. It's not enough if only one person is boycotting it, then it doesn't have an effect. But if many people are doing it, I'm pretty sure it will have an effect.
Thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you all for joining us. I hope we all can take new insights away and also work on those call to actions. You can find out more about the Data Label Association under dataworks.org. You can also find more about the work of Super at super.net. Andreas and I will be around, and please reach out and get in touch. Thank you so much for joining this session. Thank you, Joanne.